last week we spoke a lot about the idea of reincarnation, various options of lives we could have lived. And we said we know generationally we were all there at the Tower of Babel, the Tower of Babylonia, which was not a pretty scene, but we were all there. It was our generation. We were all there towards the end of the Egyptian slavery and servitude and enslavement, which was horrible, painful, but we got ourselves out. We're the generation that created redemption. And we saw miracles of the splitting of the sea, the giving of the Torah in the desert. Hopefully we were all the righteous women as we have come again. We knew how to bring redemption then. We're bringing it again now. We're the generation of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, again, after a very devastating time for the Jewish people. After the destruction of the Second Temple, there was that one generation where the whole generation knew the inner secrets of God, the Kabbalistic wisdom. We were there. And we've been there many, 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 many other times. And all of our lifetimes are us. That's an important thing to remember. Of course, we don't remember our lifetimes, but they're all a continuum of us. I think of it like, chapters in a book. So we might not remember the chapters that already were, but they're all part of our own journey, of our own existence. And it's very interesting because we see a proof for this in the prayer we say at night before we go to sleep. We pray 3 times a day. We have the evening prayer, the morning prayer, the afternoon prayer. But then we pray again right before we go to sleep. The main prayer we say then is the Shema prayer, but we say other prayers as well. It's a few pages in the prayer book. And the first paragraph we say every single night is, I forgive anyone who harmed me in this lifetime or in any previous lifetime. Now that's a very strong thing to say, because how could I forgive previous lifetime? I know who harmed me. That wasn't even me. That was another journey. If you say you forgive anyone who harmed you in any previous lifetime, it's because all those lifetimes are you. They're so you that you can forgive the hurt. So all of these reincarnations we were discussing, for all the reasons we discussed, are again another chapter, another chapter, another chapter in the book of really a person's life. That's why sometimes we see tragedy and we don't understand, because we're only looking at one chapter. We don't understand the whole book. Also, at the same time, all of these previous lifetimes are all me. I'm the culmination of all the lifetimes. That's why I'm very old and I'm very powerful. We're all very old and very powerful because we're the culmination of so many journeys on this world. At the same time, every lifetime is going to come back by the redemption. By the redemption, by the resurrection of the dead, not by reincarnation, by the resurrection of the dead. Every single lifetime will come back independently. Every person deserves to come back in their body for how they lived and served God. So it's almost like you could be walking the streets of Jerusalem and see someone and be like, wow, she looks awfully similar to me. Oh yeah, this was a previous lifetime of mine. This is me in another dimension. So for many souls, reincarnation is to cleanse, to finish the job. Now, we also spoke earlier of Gehenom, the after-death purging, which is also to cleanse. That does not finish the job. Gehenom is not finishing a job. For that, you have to come back. There has to be reincarnation to finish any unfinished work. As we said, any commandments you didn't study or fulfill, anything that has to be rectified, that you have to come back. But for cleansing, the soul can go to Gehenom. That is what it is, a spiritual cleansing. It's not just punitive. It might sound punitive, but it's scouring to cleanse. And that's why generally for non-Jews, there's no concept of Gehenom. Because if they're not going on to the spiritual basking in the afterlife of God's presence, what's called Gan Eden, if they're not going to have Gan Eden, why should they have Gehenom? Gehenom is to cleanse you, to be able to enjoy and receive from Gan Eden. You're not going to Gan Eden, then what you go to Gehenom for? And that's why for most non-Jews, there's no concept of Gehenom. There's no concept of Gan Eden, there's no concept of Gehenom. There are some non-Jews that are so incredibly wicked that they have punishment. They have their own punishments. That's not Gehenna. Not Gehenna. It's punishments purely for the sake of punishment for the evil they did in this world. But if they were not arch villains that did such evil that they need that punishment, they don't have Gehenna. Because they don't have Gan Eden. Why should they have Gehenna? Do they have reincarnation? They do, but not like a Jewish reincarnation. As we learned and discussed, the Jewish reincarnation is to finish the jobs that we didn't do, to rectify something maybe we didn't complete, to study or fulfill all the 613 commandments, The world needs you. That's why a Jew has reincarnation. For a non-Jew, it's more like recycling matter. They live, they pass away, and they come back down for another lifetime to live again and be another human being on this world, which is not the concept of reincarnation. The only non-Jew who has an afterlife, not like a Jewish afterlife, but at least going in that direction, is a Noahide. A Noahide is a non-Jew who accepts the 7 laws of Noah, God's laws. He accepts them, he fulfills them, he keeps them. And that commitment to keeping the 7 laws creates the ability for his soul to have the afterlife. Meaning, the afterlife is connected to the eternal quality of a soul. Well, a non-Jew doesn't have a godly soul, so they don't have that eternal quality. They live, and again, assuming they're a regular person, they're going to become recycled, so to speak, and live again. There's no Gan Eden concept. There's no eternal concept to that life. But if the non-Jew fulfills the 7 laws of Noah, meaning they know there's God, they accept that God has commandments for them, and they fulfill the commandments, not because they're nice moral people. So, for example, one of the commandments is don't kill. Well, of course they never kill. That doesn't mean they're a Noahide. That doesn't mean they're doing the commandment. We're very glad they never kill. But they have to know there's God, know that God commanded them not to kill, and for that reason not kill. Then they are connecting to the eternal quality of the commandment. And as such, they have afterlife. They live on forever through the eternal energy of the commandment they did. And therefore, it's incredibly significant, special, important for non-Jew to be a Noahide. That is literally the only way they create an eternal dimension to their existence. Did anyone ever speak to a non-Jew about the idea of Noahide? Again, it's so important because non-Jews are really like this world energy. And when they recognize God, it's really like fulfilling the purpose of creation, that humans, this world, Jews are like incognito, in camouflage, but a non-Jew is this world. So when they recognize God, it's very precious. And personally, as I'm saying, it's very important because that connects them to eternity. Anyone here ever, I'm sure we all have non-Jewish acquaintances, and it's a wonderful thing we don't proselytize. We're not trying to convert anyone. Judaism actually discourages conversion, but just to give them the opportunity to fulfill their reason for creation, their reason for existence. We very much understand and value Noahides. People, there's 8 billion mankind out there, and they could all have a relationship with God. Every single one of them. Every human is created in God's image. Every human has the ability to do goodness and kindness. For every act of goodness any human being does, God will always repay. And if they're a Noahide, as we're saying, they have Gan Eden as well, a special Gan Eden for Noahides. We even believe that non-Jews, speaking here in this class about mourning and our obligations for the deceased, so we believe that non-Jews also have those obligations. Because Maimonides says, whoever doesn't mourn is cruel. We also know we're not supposed to mourn excessively. That's called foolishness. Because God put in our hearts after approximately a year to forget the pain. So we don't want to excessively mourn. God doesn't want that. That's why we forget the pain. We just have the good memories. And we also don't want to not mourn, because that's very cruel to the deceased, and it's expressing a cruelty in ourselves. So if we view the laws of mourning this way, mourning for our loss, giving respect to the departed, healing, it makes sense that non-Jews also should, at least loosely, follow the laws of mourning, the laws of Shiva, the laws of the 30 days, the laws of the year, because that's what God established as a healthy, good way to respect the deceased and to heal. Torah laws express the best way to live. So these practices are good for Jews and for Noahides. Did anyone here ever have that experience, or 2 experiences, meaning have 2 losses, and with one you followed the Torah laws of mourning, and with one you didn't? And did you see a difference in terms of your comfort, your ability to move on? Did anyone have that, or just experiencing following it God's ways through the laws of Shiva and mourning and see that it helped them?
I did. My father passed away 25 years ago when I even didn't know about Shiva at that time. So my experience was very difficult, and it was like the end. It felt like this is it. This is end. All my dreams, whatever my connection, there's nothing ever again was very depressing. So I was depressed. And when my mom passed away, which was like 7 years ago, it was very painful, but at the same time was comforting to know that there is future, that one day we'll meet each other, that she's in a good place, that she meets her parents. So there was a lot of like a comforting thoughts when I thought about my mom, even though it was very painful loss for me, but at the same time, there was comforting thoughts. So it was totally different experience.
Wow, wow. And you really had it both ways, so you could really compare it and really see the difference.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very powerful to hear that. You know, I had the loss of my father. I never had a loss that I had obviously a comparison to not having the comfort, but definitely for me, I really saw that. It was very interesting for my husband when his father passed away, and he said then, you know, at the end of the Shiva, our custom is to scream at the mourners and say, "Go out, go out, go out," like harshly. My husband said he never understood, like, why are we screaming at these poor people? And he said when he was in that position, he really understood it, because he just felt such like almost like comfort in the bubble of the mourning, that it really was almost like hard to disengage, because he really did see what it gave him. Someone else had experience with the Shiva, or as like have experienced it in both ways. Rachel, were you going to add?
You know, when my parents passed away, I didn't sit Shiva for neither of them, so I cannot compare that. When my husband passed away, it was different because it's not a parent, the husband. I think it's different things. I was mourning together with my children. Of course, it was comforting. It was comforting to know that we knew what to do, and we were doing it as we had a book, and the people around us was helping out. Of course, it was comforting to do that this way. I wanted to ask you, Cyril, is it okay for us to go to a funeral for a non-Jew?
You can go to a funeral of a non-Jew, yes.
Yeah.
The only thing would be that if they have a showing, an open casket, you shouldn't look at the body. And that's true also for a Jewish funeral. If you're at a Jewish funeral and they have a showing, which is considered a very, very great pain for the body, you should make sure not to look. There's considered tremendous impurity there that could affect you, that you shouldn't look. But yeah, you could go if it's appropriate, if there's reason to, if, you know, it'll bring comfort to the people that passed, if you want to pay respect, you know, for whatever reason you go to a funeral.
I just know once I went and they were praying there.
So obviously, I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking along the lines of religious. I was just thinking more the lines of, are you allowed to go to a non-Jew's funeral? If it's obviously like in a church or place of worship, if there's crosses there, no, you're not allowed to go. But that's not because don't feel the right to honor someone who passed away who's not Jewish. It's because you can't go to a place of worship, of an idolatrous worship. Meaning a Noahide shouldn't go either. It's not the question of Jewish or non-Jewish, it's a question of the place of worship. But if it was a non-sectarian funeral, not in a place of worship, then it's completely permissible. I actually know a rabbi, a Chabad rabbi in New Jersey, that someone passed away, a very important person in, like, I guess the political arena there, and he was Catholic. And when he passed away, the family called the rabbi and said, our father wanted you to run his funeral. And they said, don't worry, we're going to have a separate religious funeral, you know, for the Catholic part, but for his funeral, he wanted you, this rabbi, to run it. And the rabbi was like, whoa, am I allowed to do this? And he called a rav, he called a very big rabbi, and the rabbi said, yes, you are allowed to run the funeral. He says, well, what? Then he said, well, wait, there'll be an open casket. The rabbi said, so don't look. Anyone else has had this experience? Have they seen that the laws of Shiva have made a difference to them?
When my parents passed away, I didn't sit Shiva for 7 days. It was, I think, 1-2 days, but it still was very. I was comfortable knowing that I asked Rabbi to pray to say Kaddish every day, so I arranged that. It was comfortable because I knew, I believed in reincarnation, and I knew that they were going to meet relatives, and uh, friends. So it was comfortable, even though I didn't see it like 7 day Shiva, traditional Shiva.
It still gave you comfort. So it's
Yes.
sort of like a
yes.
combination of what Chava's saying, the concepts that give comfort.
Concept,
Rachel's
yes.
saying knowing you're walking the right road, knowing you're following rules that were laid out as the best way. The combination of both of those really gives comfort. Yeah, it really
Yes.
does. And I think that's a good point. You know, just knowing, I mean, who, what, how, what, who, you want to give respect, what do you do? And just knowing, wait, this is how God mandates it. This is the best way. And that's why we're told that even non-Jews should, in their own way, obviously they don't have to follow every law, but the concept of Shiva, the concept of mourning for a year, they should follow, both to give honor to the deceased and for themselves.
I have a question.
Sure.
How painful it is for the soul if the body is like abandoned, like for example, hostages, the bodies are not found. And you mentioned many times that soul and body are connected.
Very painful.
So
Very
that was my question. Like I keep thinking about it all the time.
That's why it's a very important thing. I'm sure you've seen, like they just recently rescued those bodies, and a person could
Yeah.
say it was such a dangerous mission to rescue those bodies. You know, information came out afterwards, footage came out afterwards. It was very dangerous. They had terrorists guarding those bodies. It was a very dangerous mission. So why would we risk our soldiers bring up bodies? Because there's this it's a very, very big value in Judaism, the respect for the body, and it's a tremendous pain. We view it as a horrific pain, and definitely, and of course the terrorists know this, that's why they guard the bodies. I don't know if you've been following. Once, if not, I believe even twice, Hamas claimed that they got the bodies of soldiers that were killed in action. Both times it was not true. We never, you know, that's the thing, the soldiers know, you don't leave bodies. Whatever's going on, you take the bodies with. They will hold hostage the bodies because they know our value, and they want to use them as bartering chips. I mean, right now, and this is not to Jews, I read in a few reliable sources that Hamas is now pressuring England and saying if they don't accede to whatever they want from them, they're going to exhume the bodies of buried British soldiers that are buried in Gaza. You know, and they're going to do whatever disgrace they're going to do to those bodies. So, you know, there's the idea of honoring the dead, and there's the idea of dishonor. And yes, we value the bodies, and we need to get everybody back. We also need to get every hostage back.
It's kind of related. How often are we supposed to go to the cemetery? Is it important?
So that is, just like I said to Chava with her question, that is so personal choice. There are some people that never go. There are some people that let go every Sunday. And there are many people in between. For most people, if the cemetery is accessible, they would for sure go once a year on the yard site. That is classically the time you go, on the yard site and on the anniversary of the passing. Some people go much more frequently than that. In terms of Jewish tradition and law, the other time besides on the yard site that we're told or recommended to go is actually coming up now in Elul, meaning Elul, which we're approaching in next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, starts the month of Elul. That's the last month from the perspective of the year, and it's a month of soul searching and returning to God and invoking our merits. So for those reasons, people have the custom to go to the graves of their parents, to pray there that their parents should bring down merit for them. So for many people don't go. Many people go once a year on the yard site. Many people go on the yard site and in Elul. Many people go if they're in a hard situation for the same reason, to go to the deceased, their parents or spouse, to pray for them, to bring down merits for them, to plead with God to help them. And some people go very often. It's just something that they find comfort in going. Definitely there's a connection between the soul and the body, and therefore it is considered a very strong way to connect to the deceased is through going to the gravesite.
Can I ask you, Cyril?
Okay, sorry.
Somebody told me that when you attend the funeral and you cannot visit your parents' graves at the same time because it's not respect respectful enough? Is it true? Like I'm
Someone
under figure
said
for
that
some.
if you're going to a Beis HaChaim, which is a Hebrew term for a cemetery, and your parents are buried in the same place, you should not go to your parents. I never heard that, but
Ah,
that does not mean it's not true. I will ask and I will let you know. I'll put it on the group. I never heard of it. That doesn't mean it's not true because there's a lot of laws. It could be a custom. Maybe
I've
some
heard,
custom.
Cyril, I've heard the same thing from Chabad rabbi. Actually, when I was in the funeral of my friend's mother, and in the same place, there was a burial place of my other friend mother, and the rabbi told us that if you know other people who also buried in this whatever cemetery, don't go there today.
So interesting because I mean, live and learn because I never heard that, but two people heard it, so it's probably.
Yeah, I heard it too.
I will check
I
it out
also
though. I
the
will check
same
it out.
thing.
You
The
also
same
heard the
thing
same thing.
here. Yeah. I
Okay.
wanna add. I wanna add
I'm just going to
another
say because I
question.
do that when I go to a cemetery
Yeah.
and I see other people
I
there as I'm leaving, not before, but
yeah.
afterwards. I always go and say a chapter of Psalms to help those souls. So live
I
and
have.
learn. Okay, thank you for asking the question, but I will check it out. I will let you
Yeah.
know. Is it custom? Is it law? I will let you know. Yes, Miriam.
Yes, in the same topic. Again, I was told, and I will say by Rabbi, Chabad Rabbi, that it's not healthy to go to a cemetery too often. I did not. It was talking to everybody, so I did not ask any questions. Just listen to him, and then I happened to heard from one of the Jewish women who said that again, it's not good to go very often, and I don't understand what means very often. Example was given as she went to her parents, and somebody asked her because from different city that if she could go to visit this other people parents a week later, and she said, no, I just was one last week. I was just at my parents' grave. I can't go this. So I'm a little bit confused. I just was a witness to
I
this
honestly,
conversation.
I have to say, I never heard that.
Nothing.
I will
Okay.
look into
Okay.
it. I will post the answer.
Yeah.
I
And
definitely
another.
know people. I think it's very much just personal feeling because I know people
I
so
see.
often
Okay. Okay.
and
And
feel
then
it gives them comfort and they feel they're connecting
right,
passed
right.
away.
Like for
But I'll
instance,
find out for you.
myself.
I
Yeah.
will
For
find
instance.
out. I don't want to say anything because I didn't know the other thing either. So
Right.
I'll find out.
For instance, for myself, I do feel very big. I would what word I would use? I'm looking forward, like in on Elul 19 will be anniversary yahrzeit of my father. So I live here in San Francisco, and 2 times a year I go to East Coast to New Jersey because in Elul is my father, and in the winter, in Adar, I think, I don't remember Hebrew date, is my mom's yurtzeit. So I go there those two times a year, and I am looking forward. I even, you know what, believe it or not, but I'm just noting in my mind what I'm gonna ask for. You know, I remember this, I was a kid, my father, when he would go to my grandparents to cemetery, he would say, Zana gite beter for deine Kinder.
That's the
And
expression
this,
we use. Yes,
right,
exactly
and
the
this
expression we use.
sentence stuck in my mind since childhood. So even when we talk in English, something, these words come out from me. Ich
That's the
bin dir
expression we
man
use.
tote,
No,
ich
it's
bin dir.
I don't these things are so personalized. There are some people that feel so much when they go to a gravesite. There are some people that don't feel. There are some
Yeah,
people that go on the
um,
yard because they know they're supposed to, but they don't feel that connection. There's some people that
so
talk and
two
pour out their hearts and feel so connected. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong. Definitely, if anyone is going on a gravesite and they do want to say psalms, there are very specific psalms you say by the gravesite, and I'm very happy to share that with anyone. It's a long list, it's a very specific list, and
So,
those are the customs of the psalms we say. And of course, that's wonderful to do. And yeah, of course, people pour out their hearts and feel very connected to the deceased. And some people go frequently, and some people do not. And I will find out for you the laws. if it's law,
Okay,
if it's
and
custom, what it means frequently.
last question. So I also was told again by my parents that taught me that the woman who's in her period, she's not
That's true.
supposed to go.
Yes,
This
that's
is true.
Absolutely.
Okay, because not everybody knows this, even within Chabad community. But I'm glad that you are on the same page as I. That was told my. And also, if woman is pregnant.
A pregnant woman cannot go to a funeral. She can go to a grave, but she cannot go to a funeral. She can go to a cemetery if someone's pregnant, but you can't go to a funeral if someone's pregnant.
Are there explanations to this?
Sure.
No.
Yes, absolutely. During a funeral, there's a body there. There's a deceased body, and there's tremendous powers of impurity that are found there with the open grave, with the deceased body. And a woman who's pregnant is considered very susceptible. And the fear is that these powers of impurity could affect the fetus. And that's why if there's an open grave, a woman who's pregnant does not go. If there's not an open grave, like you're going to a cemetery to pray by your parents, it's not a problem at all being pregnant. But if there's an open grave, yes, a pregnant woman does not go if there's an open grave. And
Okay.
I personally had that experience more than once by my grandparents and by my father. I was pregnant when my father passed away. I could not go in for the funeral. I was pregnant.
But then you went after you to the
Afterwards I could go.
cemetery. You did go. You did
I
go.
couldn't go
after.
then. I could go other
No,
times.
no.
No, I couldn't.
During the pregnancy. No, I mean during pregnancy to
You
the
can go
cemetery,
during
not
pregnancy, but you
right.
cannot
Okay.
go to.
Okay, understand. Okay.
That is
Thank you very much.
strong rule that we do not go to a burial, but you can definitely go when you're pregnant to a cemetery. Absolutely.
And not during period. And why you cannot go when you have a period?
The period, because also there's a certain connection of more susceptibility to the impurity, and the fear is that that could harm the woman, and therefore she doesn't.
Okay, okay. But could you go to Katel when you have a period?
The kotel, yes. We don't go though if a person like, let's say you have your period and you're in Israel and you want to go to the holy burial sites, it's a bit challenging, and you have to stand a certain number of feet away from the place
Okay,
of the burial.
thank you. All right. That was a case when I was in Israel, and I had to contact somebody in New York to find if I can go to Katel, but I'm a Western Wall,
Yeah,
and
the
I was
Western Wall's not a
allowed.
problem. The Western Wall's not.
Yeah, I was allowed. Okay, okay.
That's not-
All right. Thank you very
All
much.
right.
Very
Anyone else have any
important.
questions before I move on?
Yes, I have a question. So, for example, if you have a burial of your close relative or friend and you have a period, so the same rules apply as for pregnant women. With the period, you cannot go to the funeral, even
Yes.
close relatives. Same rules.
Yes.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
You could go to the Shiva house. It's not a problem at all.
Right.
You
Right.
go
Okay.
and you could go if they have separately in a sanctuary. You could go to
Like
that.
service.
You just can't go
going to the
literally to the
service.
burial. You could
Yeah.
go to
But
But
what
service
happens
is involved.
if it's close, like a mother or father? Still, woman doesn't go to the
I
funeral.
just said I did not go to my father's burial. I was pregnant.
Wow.
I stayed
No,
outside.
if you had period, not
I
also
don't know.
no.
Maybe you'd ask a rabbi. Obviously, in any situation,
Wow.
in any situation, if the rule seems in your personal situation not appropriate, there's always room to ask a rabbi, and the rabbi might say, this is a general rule and your situation is different. You can always
Thank you
ask
very
a
much.
rabbi. There's always room to ask a rabbi. Any Orthodox rabbi could say, and I've seen, many different things Orthodox rabbis say, and it's only situational for that specific person. In your situation, this person, you could do it. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Any other questions? We were talking about the soul. We were talking about here the morning, the Shiva. We got into that topic. Let's talk now about what happens after the whole purging process. If it was through reincarnation, if it was through Gehenom, all of this we said is to lead up to Gan Eden. Meaning, we said a regular non-Jew doesn't have Gehenom. Why should they have Gehenom? They're not going to have Gan Eden. Gehenna, we said, is to cleanse, to remove any of the barriers so the soul can enjoy God in Gan Eden, in the afterlife. What is Gan Eden? It is the absolutely incredible pleasure based on what was accomplished in this world. All the Torah study, all the commandments done, primarily Torah study, but also the commandments. It's reward. It's the real reward for everything, whatever was done. You could understand Gan Eden as like an enormous, enormous light. Now, if you would go on vacation somewhere, as some of you do, some nice, hot, sunny place, you didn't bring sunscreen, you'd probably burn, and it wouldn't be a very comfortable experience. If you get like total coverage, S5, I don't know what, 21 or 25, whatever the numbers are, well, you have no tan. You can come back, nobody even knew you were on vacation. So you want the right sunscreen that lets the good rays in and keeps the too strong ones out, like a healthy filter. For the soul in the afterlife, the Torah, the commandments, those are the filters. Every commandment is actually considered the garments of the soul that filters in the lights of Gan Eden to be absorbed in a positive, amazing way for the soul. So the more commandments that were done, the more filters you have, not filters that are obscuring, but filters that are absorbing. The more filters you have, the more vehicles you have, it's called literally the garments you have, to absorb these lights. Another way it's explained is that every commandment and all Torah creates bonds with God. This world, literally, right now, we are all doing a commandment. We are all studying Torah. Everything we're saying is Torah. And we're creating bonds with God. But we obviously don't feel a thing about that. In Gan Eden, we get the energy from every single bond we created. Every single thing we ever did is now radiating our soul. And that's all the soul wants. That's all the soul ever wanted. Before, during, after, all the soul wants is God. So at this point in Gan Eden, she's getting it. She's getting godliness. And she's feeling it. And the sensation is more incredible than any physical pleasure we can imagine. It's purely spiritual. So the intensity of the pleasure factor, is more intense than any pleasure we've ever experienced in this world. Now, of course, on one hand, this world has an advantage, because here we can uniquely fuse with God. And that's why we say, in a sense, this world is better than the afterlife. Because in the afterlife, I don't fuse with God. But this world, I don't feel a thing. I'm fusing right now with God. You're fusing with God. We're studying Torah. We're understanding God and I are one, but I don't feel it. In the afterlife, in Gan Eden, I'm not literally getting God. I'm getting the godliness. But I feel it. And that's incredible. Incredible. Now, I can't serve there. That's not so great. I can't give to God there. That's not so great. But I feel everything I accomplished, and that's amazing. Everything I accomplished in my lifetime, I'm experiencing. In a sense that when a person passes away, they're done, meaning they can't do anything more creative. They can't add to their bank account. But that doesn't mean the soul is stationary. The soul is not stationary. The verse says in Psalms, man goes from level to level, from strength to strength. Yelchu mechayil el chayil. We go from strength to strength. So just as in our lifetime, we're always growing. If you haven't noticed, maybe we're challenged, maybe situations occur in our life, but we're always growing. God always is creating situations to inspire our growth. And even after a person passes away, the growth doesn't stop. The growth doesn't stop. It never stops. Every single soul, the souls that have been above for thousands of years, their growth never stops. And we're told that actually, just as we pray 3 times a day, the soul every day has 3 moments, like the prayers, of growth, constant growth. Because if you're not growing, however good it is, it wouldn't feel good enough. And as long as there's always growth, it's like, oh my gosh, more than everything, anything of this physical world. So we said that 3 times a day, parallel to the 3 times of prayer, there's growth. Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, this week coming up, Tuesday, Wednesday is Rosh Chodesh, a holiday. All of the souls in the lower Gan Eden ascend. They have an incredible experience to be in what's called the higher Gan Eden, meaning there are 4 spiritual worlds above our world. In the 2 lower spiritual worlds, there are lower Gan Edens. In the world, it's called Asiya. In the world of Yetzirah, primarily is the lower Gan Eden. In the next world above that, in the world of Bria, is the higher Gan Eden. And in the highest world, Atzilos, there is no Gan Eden. It's too high for Gan Eden. So most souls are in the two lowest worlds, Gan Eden, which is incredible and amazing and more than any pleasure in this physical world. But very great holy souls are in the upper Gan Eden in the world of Bria. And the highest souls, like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, David, Solomon, they're beyond Gan Eden. They're in Atzilus beyond Gan Eden. But regular souls, good people, every Jew's a good person. Serve God. We all serve God to the best of our ability. Are in the two lower Gan Edens, but on Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, if it's 2 days, it's 2 whole days. A holiday. They all ascend from the lower Gan Eden to the higher Gan Eden, which is a time of such intense pleasure for the soul. Oh my gosh, they're in the domain of the most righteous, holy, and they have that degree of pleasure of feeling God. So those are super special days for the soul. Obviously, this connects, we say the Yizkor on the holiday. Yizkor, of course, is the prayer for the deceased, and this prayer is to give the souls the benefit of the holiday. Just as we're benefiting below from the holiday, the soul should benefit above. That's why it's very important to say Yizkor. If you cannot get to a synagogue, you can still say Yizkor. I know some people feel that, oh, they missed Yizkor because they couldn't go to synagogue. You could say Yizkor from your home. As long as you have the prayer, you could say Yizkor wherever you are. Of course, part of Yizkor is we're turning to the souls to draw down blessings for us, but Yizkor goes in both directions. It's also us gifting the souls with the energy of the holiday, which helps their ascent higher and higher in the higher Gan Eden. Obviously, we spoke about the yahrzeit as the greatest day for the soul, the personal greatest day for the soul. And birthdays continue. Today was my father's birthday. I knew it was his birthday. I knew he was celebrating above. I knew he had special powers. I turned to him to bring down various blessings. Birthdays continue. Yahrzeits continue. Besides myself, does anyone still note their parents' birthdays after they passed away? Well, you can. I do continue saying the Psalms, just as we say for a person's age, we say Psalms. Years continue. I asked a big rabbi, after my father passed away. Absolutely. So we continue saying, you can choose. You don't have to. Not mandatory. But you can continue saying Psalms, just like you say for a person living. You could say for someone that you're close to who passed away, you can continue their Psalms. And on the birthday, like for all of us, you go to the next one. Why are you saying the Psalms? Why are you saying the Yizkor? Again, both for them and for us. Obviously, as we're mentioning now, the idea of the yahrzeit. The yahrzeit is the most special, significant day for the departed, for the soul. It's a day of the ultimate growth, meaning, as we said, every day, 3 times a day, and every Shabbos, and every holiday, and every Rosh Chodesh. So there's all these jumps and jumps, a birthday. But the biggest day of the most ascension is the yahrzeit. And that's why we have a tremendous mandate on the yahrzeit to do whatever we can to help the ascension of the soul. It's the most potent jump. And therefore, we want to really empower. It's a custom, of course, as we said, to go to the cemetery to pray. Obviously, we say the Kaddish on the yahrzeit. And it's a custom to study Mishnayos on the yahrzeit. Mishnah is the same letters in Hebrew as soul, neshama. And therefore, it helps the soul. As I said, there's special psalms we say by the gravesite, which I can give anyone who's going to a gravesite. It's a custom to, after the prayers, bring food to the synagogue, that the people can make blessings. And through the blessings they make on the food, this also helps the soul of the departed. So all of these things are different ways we try, plus any, of course, act of charity. It's very important to give charity on the yahrzeit, and this charity should help the deceased. All these things are very, 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 very important. So Miriam was saying before how much connection she feels by the gravesite. And of course, that makes sense because the soul is connected to the body, is connected to the gravesite. And that's why people go to the gravesite to commune with their parents, as we said, to leave invitations for a wedding or a bar mitzvah. People go to the gravesite to connect. Some people feel it and some people don't feel it as much. So Miriam feels it very strongly. Any other people here feel it strongly when they go to the gravesite? It really helps them. They really feel connected. Oh, nobody's responding as much as Miriam.
Sometimes.
No,
Some-
it's,
most
I
of the
wanted to
time.
say,
Yes.
I don't know, it's me talking or somebody.
Yeah, it's you talking.
You just said something that people leave invitations.
Mhm,
I mean, physical piece of paper on the
yes,
grave.
absolutely. Some people do.
Do they put
Again,
it
it's
like
personal choice.
no,
It's
I
not
understand, but
mandatory or
I
norm.
understand. But does it mean like they put it in the ground or just leave it because
They
wind
put
will
it,
blow away?
they put it, whatever, they put it down. They did their part. They're inviting people.
Mm.
Many people have the custom before a wedding or some people for a bar mitzvah, but many people before a wedding, they go to the grave sites of parents and grandparents to invite them to the wedding. That's a
Mm.
custom many people have. And some people bring physical invitations and put it down. Absolutely. Again, is it
Okay.
right? Is it wrong? It's personal choice. There's nothing right about doing it. There's nothing wrong about doing it. It's personal choice. If this is how you feel you're really inviting your parents or grandparents, it's wonderful. If you feel I'm not going to their gravesite, but I know they're going to come, we say for all life cycle events, 3 generations come. And for sure, the most important one is a wedding. So by a wedding, parents, grandparents, and great grandparents all come. We know they're there. We know they're there by the chuppah. We know they all come. Some people don't invite. We know they're coming anyway. Some people feel you invite. Some people feel you leave an invitation. Nothing's wrong. Each person is what they're feeling, how they express this. But yes, we definitely have that belief. And we will stop at this point. What we're just up to speaking about is like sending care packages after a person has passed away to continue helping your parents or anyone else that passed away that you want to give them even more growth than they achieved on their own merits. Because, of course, as we said, once a person passes away, they continually grow, but they don't have the ability to create more assets in their bank account. But we have the ability to give them more assets.